Hey guys, it's Elena. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am taking you along to show you how I made my dream pink glitter ruffle dress. This one is so cute and I love how it turned out. I was just really in the mood to make something glittery and pink and really in your face, and this really gets the job done. So I'm gonna walk you through everything that I did and I know you're gonna love it. So first things first, you're gonna get your fabric and start cutting out. I have a base lining fabric and then I also have a glittery fabric. For my base fabric, I'm cutting everything out the same that I am for my glitter fabric, except my base fabric skirt is a circle skirt, and then I am cutting everything out again out of my glitter fabric. You are gonna want a vacuum nearby if you're using glitter because it is very messy. And this is everything that I had out. I've got a few layers of glitter skirts for the front and back. I have my sleeve pieces, my front bodice, back bodice, some sleeve ruffles, and also a ruffle for my skirt. The first step with this whole entire process is putting my pieces together. So I have basically 2 glitter pieces for each piece of my dress. So I've placed my 2 glitter pieces over my bodice back piece and I'm just attaching those together so that I can move on to my next step, which is actually starting sewing together the pieces of my dress. So I'm putting my front bodice piece together with my back bodice pieces along the shoulder and side seams. You can see I already have stitches on this fabric. Those stitches are just attaching the glitter pieces to my base piece. So the next step is to actually fit the bodice to me. So I have put on my bodice inside out, and then I'm basically just pinning in where I want my darts to sit. This is the most efficient and best way that I found to fit things to myself. This saves the step of draping and making a mock-up, and with other projects that's definitely necessary, but for this project I found that this was perfect. So I'm basically just kind of pinching along. I got the darts exactly how I wanted on one side, and then I decided to just duplicate that on the other side of my front bodice piece to make sure that my darts are as symmetrical as possible. So I'm measuring in, I've got it all pinned how I want it, and then I am just going to actually sew those darts in. So I'm just starting with my normal seam length, and then as I get closer to the end of the dart, I'm shortening that seam length. And then the next part, I decided to add a ruffle at the shoulder seam. So I've got my little ruffle piece. I did a long basting stitch to gather this little piece of fabric, and then I am pinning that on along the top of my shoulder on my bodice. You can see I've got a lot of pins, just making sure that it is sitting as flat as possible. And then I'm just attaching that with a normal straight seam. The next step is to work on my sleeves. So I am gathering the top shoulder part of my sleeve to make it puffy. I am sewing that armpit sleeve together and then pinning the sleeve onto my bodice, nesting those side seams, and then just pinning all the way around the armhole so that I can attach it together with a straight stitch. At this point, I'm just using my normal 1/2 inch seam allowance like I am the rest of the dress. To finish off my sleeves, I hemmed it and then I am attaching my elastic to make it actually puffy. So I am basically just putting this the distance away from the bottom of the hem and then zigzag stitching my elastic. Next is the facing. I am sewing my facing pieces together, and then you can see from this very clear non-obstructed clip that I am pinning on the facing right sides to the neckline of my bodice. So I just made sure to match up the shoulder seams of the facing to the shoulder seams of my bodice. Here's what that looks like, and then I'm going to understitch this facing. So I'm pulling the seam allowance towards the facing, and then I'm just gonna basically do a stitch super close to that seam and sew the facing to the seam allowance, and that will just help it sit nice and flat so I don't have to have a visible top stitch. Next is the skirt. So I am sewing these ruffle pieces together. I had several ruffle pieces, and then I am sewing my skirt front and back together along the side seams. So I am doing 2 long basting stitches along the top of my skirt, and then I am basically just attaching this little bottom ruffle to the bottom of my skirt to add some volume and length. I basically clipped it in half and then in half and then in half to get that gather in since there was so much fabric. And then here I am just actually adding those gathers into the top of my skirt. And then I'm gonna do a very similar thing to the glitter pieces of my skirt. I am sewing the glitter front and back panels together, and then I'm gathering my bottom ruffle and attaching that bit by bit to the bottom of my skirt. Again, just to add a little zhuzh and volume to my skirt. This process does take some time, so just make sure you're going nice and slow and being precise, but also it's gathering and glitter and tulle, so it doesn't need to be the most perfect, but take your time, take out all your pins, and just basically attach that ruffle on to your skirt. I'm going over the stitch that I used to gather, and then here I am pulling those basting stitches at the top of my glitter skirt to tighten it and add some gathering, and basically now at this point I am attaching my skirt layers together. So in total I have 1 under skirt layer with the ruffle, and then I have 2 top glitter layers with that ruffle. I am just clipping all along the top to secure it and make sure that it's the correct length and width, and then securing that with a normal straight stitch. If you secure it this way, it will just make it a lot easier when you go to attach it to the bodice, which is what I'm doing here. I am lining up the edge of my skirt, opening to the end of my bodice, and then just going and adding some pins along the way so that I can evenly sew the bodice to my skirt. Go ahead and attach that skirt to the bodice, and then you can add your zipper in. I've got a video about how to insert invisible zippers already on my channel if you need a little bit more guidance and help there. And then all that's left is to hem my skirt. So I am serging all along. This fabric was shedding and fraying like crazy, and then I just folded that up to hem it, and then we are done. I love how this turned out. It is so fun and honestly makes me think of Valentine's Day. I think it is so cute and I love how it turned out. I love the pink, I love the glitter, and I love how twirly it is. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.